Hello, C4 Corvette owners, admirers, and lovers. Today, I want to walk you through what it's going to be like to remove and replace a radiator on a 1994 C4 Corvette. Now, I've done enough work on this and looked around enough to where I think the leak is coming from the radiator itself. If I take this car out for like a 2-mile spin, it doesn't leak. If I go for more than 2 miles and come back, I get a little bit of dripping over right underneath the radiator. And when I lift this car up, I'm going to show you the telltale sign that I believe it's the radiator that's leaking. So if you're thinking about, if you're not an owner of a C4 and you're thinking about buying or purchasing a C4, here's one thing I think I could pass along for advice. If you're planning to have this car be your daily driver, then I would recommend that you not buy a 1992 through a 1996. And the reason why is because the 92s through 96 came with the LT1 motor, which produced a little more horsepower than the previous engines. However, it also comes with the OptiSpark. And if you're going to daily drive this car, eventually you're going to drive it through weather, and water is the biggest enemy of the OptiSpark. It will flood it out. You can drive this car in the rain, but you just have to be darn sure that you don't drive over any puddles. As you compress water off of the tire, it's going to compress water up into the engine and it's going to flood your OptiSpark. The owner of this car, previous to me, daily drove this car, and he had to replace the OptiSpark on this car twice. And I don't know what it's going to cost to do that, but if you have somebody do it, it's going to run somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 because it sits underneath the water pump, and so they're going to replace the water pump also. And it's a pretty extensive effort, so it's not cheap. Okay, let's get to work. I'm going to be back once I lift the car up and I start showing you everything that I can show you for now. Now, during the removal and installation of the radiator, you're going to hear me say at one point that the fit for this particular cooling line, I'm going to say 12 millimeters too small and 13 millimeters too big. And then what's going on? Which is it? Well, what it is, it's a 1/2. You can see that this is going to go on like perfectly. Right there. Fits on. Right there. Fits on nice and snug. It's a 1/2 that's going to go on there. So the point here is that you're going to be using both English and metric wrenches when you're doing the installation for this. Just keep that in mind, that if metric doesn't use, switch to English, vice versa. Okay, we're back here for the starting to look a little bit more at the radiator, and I wanted to kind of walk you through how I've jacked this up. I've used these 10-inch race ramps. You can see right here. These race ramps come, I believe, in 8-inch, 10-inch, and 12-inch high. And I chose the 10-inch, but honestly, if you have a C4, you could easily get away with the 8-inch. And I'll tell you why. The 10-inch, lifting this car this high, is a proposition that I can just barely do with these Pittsburgh 3-ton low-profile jacks. In fact, they don't do it. In fact, they can't lift the car high enough. Let me show you what I have to do. On one side, I have to get this plywood and put it on one side on the front wheels, and the front wheels have to rest on this as I jack this car up. So there you go. There's a good case for an 8-inch. The 8-inch race ramps, you only lose a couple of inches, and I don't think it's going to be a big deal because you've got all kinds of room underneath here to do what you need to do. Now, what I do when I lift this is I actually constructed this crib. It's 4 2x4s high. And here you can see I use these screws. And what I do is, because this jacking situation comes up so high, I don't want the car to be lifted on one side that high. So what I do is I lift the front end, I put these cribs underneath first, then I jack up the back side and put up the race ramps underneath it. Then I come back to the front, lift the car up, and then put the race ramps underneath it when I remove these cribs. Now, you might be able to get away with just lifting the car up, but it's at an awful bad angle, and I don't know. I'm just being cautious. Maybe I'm being overly cautious. Okay, so let's take a look underneath at this radiator. And we're gonna do a quick inspection here. And here you can see this green coolant, where it's coming from, and I think it's coming from the radiator. Because as you inspect the radiator hose here, it's dry. There's nothing coming from that radiator hose. And the radiator hose on the other side is dry, but the coolant is here. And I mean, it could migrate. I mean, you see a little bit of migration here, but it would have had to migrate from the other hose over here. But anyway, that other hose is dry. Now, when we take this off, when we get this radiator out, we have 4 lines coming into the radiator. I am over on the passenger side, and you've got this one transmission line. So the transmission lines actually go into the radiator. So you've got this one here on the bottom and another one on the top, and they're going to have to come off. And you have 2 coolant lines, 2 coolant hoses. This is one, the other one's on the other side at the top, and they're going to have to come off. Okay, so there's just some basics, and I've never actually done this before, so we're all going to learn together. This is going to be fun. I'm not sure what's involved here, but I'm guessing that I need kind of a small wrench to get this off. And so we'll kind of walk through that. Okay, 10-4 out for now. So what I wind up doing is I'm going to wind up referencing this 84 to 96 repair manual for Corvettes. And it doesn't have a great explanation. It just have a step-by-step procedure for how to deal with removing the radiator. It should be pages, and it should have a lot of photos, pictures, whatever. It doesn't have anything. It just has a list of things and maybe one small photo. But I am going to follow this guide because at least it'll tell me step by step what I should do next. So one of the couple of first things it says is disconnect the negative battery cable, and then we're going to disconnect the surge tank radiator pressure cap. I don't know that we want to do that second. I think what we want to do is remove the air cleaner assembly. I know that that's going to have to come off, and then not sure what this radiator upper deflector shroud is, but the electrical connectors from the cooling fan relays are going to have to get unplugged. So we're going to kind of use some common sense here as we follow this list. Just so you know that I am using this, but this is the last time I'll refer to it. I'll just kind of walk you through what it is I do from here on out. Now, if you recall, one of the early steps of this is that we need to get this air intake housing off. And there's going to be a band that connects here to the throttle body, and that's going to come off at that end. I don't know what connects the I'm thinking this just probably without any bolts or anything, this just sort of has a just kind of slips in here, but I don't know. I think just to make life easier, I'm going to go ahead and remove the air filter. So we'll go ahead and remove the air filter now. And I'll come right back when it's pretty much done. Okay, those bolts are off. And we're gonna see what happens here. So this thing lifts out just enough to get the air filter out, but it doesn't come all the way out. So maybe it looks like it's gonna just come out. So I think what I need to do next is go ahead and just unbolt this right here, this band, and then I think this whole thing is going to come off. Let's try that. Okay, so when you unscrew this little screw right here, this comes off pretty easily. So what we want to do now is we want to make sure that we get any electrical plug-in off, and we want to be pretty gentle about this because this is pretty old plastic, and it sure enough it has to bend a long way out before it wants to come out. So I'm going to use two hands to do that. There's another connection right there that needs to come out also, so I'm going to use two hands to get that out, and then I think this is all going to just come out. Alrighty, so we're on the other side, and now this doohickey, this mass airflow sensor connection needs to come off. It's not really obvious how that comes off. There appear to be two tabs. You want to ignore this one here. There's one here that it looks like, if I can get in close enough, it looks like there's a little tab that pops up. Let me see if I can adjust this a little better. There's a little tab that pops up. I think you want to ignore that. That plastic housing right there, that's going to stay on there. How this is going to come off is not obvious, but you can see a little tab right in here, and then there's a plastic housing that kind of goes over it right here. That tab's going to have to go in, and then this housing going to have to pop up, and I think that's going to pull out. There's one on the bottom too. They couldn't make this any more difficult, right? That's the whole goal here. But anyway, I'm going to try that, and I need two hands to do it. And when I'm finished, I'll come back and let you know if that was the deal. Alrighty, let me share with you how that wound up coming off. That did wind up coming off. However, I don't think all C4s are like this. For some reason, I think some C4s are different and a little bit easier than this one. Let me share with you how this works. So here's this piece right here that had to come off, and it was just like I said, this little tab is what sticks up, and you're not going to be able to push that down. That's just solidly in place along with this. But what you have to do is you have to get two fingernails underneath this part, and it's just as I said, this is the plastic housing. And so you have to get two fingernails on each side of this thing and pull up on it on the top and then push down on the bottom. And then this pops off, and guess what? This stays in there. That's in there just like that. Isn't it? I'm sorry to have to cover like all these little things, but I think this is the process you have to go through just to change the radiator, right? You're not getting past this. You're not going to get the radiator until you do this. So they've made it fairly difficult, and then this is going to go right back on the same way. It's going to have to go around the wires there and then snap in, and that'll hold it in place. So that's out. Now you pull this out, and now that's out, and it's going to allow us to pull this. I think that's the last connection, and I think we can go ahead and pull this air filter housing on. So just make sure you keep this piece out. All right, got the air intake off of the throttle body, and as I went to go pull up on this, there is let's see if I can show it there. There's a hose that's connected to this whole thing. So this hose is going to have to come off. I think it probably comes off pretty easily, but anyway, just so you know, there's an extra step you got to do. Yeah, so once you get that hose off, that hose connection is right here. Once you get that hose off, then this, you don't have to do anything but other than just wiggle it off. It comes off, and then this whole thing just pops right out. Since it pops right out, I'm just going to go ahead and put these air filter little doohickeys back on, these screws back on, and just so that I don't lose them. You know, it's all going to go back as one unit anyway. So let's just put those back on. And just remember that the short one is the one that goes in the middle. The two longer ones, here you can see that the two longer ones, they're actually going to go on each side. Okay. Okay, I wasn't able to screw on those two longer ones on each side. And the reason why is because they actually screw into the plastic housing that the radiator's in. I'm sorry I can't get a better shot of this. Wherever I position the camera, the light kind of wants to be there too. So this may take a while, but anyway, here's where the longer ones screw into, and there's one on the other side too. And what happens is that this is the plastic housing for the radiator, and it needs to screw into there, but I've just put it into I've just gone ahead and put it into the air filter housing for now, just so that I don't lose it. We're at the point where we're ready to drain the coolant that's in the cooling system. And I got myself one of these pans. I like this because it's got this spout, and I'm going to use this spout to reuse the coolant. So put it into another container, a clean container. Only problem with this is that it's only 8 quarts, and I believe that this the 12 quart capacity coolant in this the 91 through 96 C4s. So as soon as this thing starts to fill, I'm going to push this thing over, and then I'm going to use this container here. Empty it. I'll empty it, the contents back into here, and then I'll use the, once I empty this one out, I'll empty the contents into here, and then I'm hoping that I'm able to reuse this coolant so that it doesn't go to waste, and that I don't have to do anything with it except put it right back in the car, because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So next steps are that we want to open up the surge tank. And we want to open up the radiator cap. Easier said than done. Okay. Maybe not. It's really hard to get these things off. I don't know why it is, because it's got another spring and you have to push down on it. Let me put the phone down for a second. Okay, the radiator cap is off, and the surge tank cap is off. So that's going to not allow a vacuum, and so that when we go to open up the drain plug, I'm going to open up the petcock drain plug. This should all spill out pretty good. Take a look where we want to be. And so I'm thinking that that just unscrews. We're going to find out. And I don't know if this is going to come shooting out or if it's just going to drain out. Interesting. Okay. Taking a break here. Okay, got the petcock out, and there it is. It's draining. That's going to take forever to drain 12 quarts. But you can unscrew the petcock just enough so that it starts to drain out. I'm going to open it up some more, see if we can get a little faster flow. So the coolant is done dripping, and here's my concern. My concern is that it's done dripping and it hasn't nearly filled up enough of this container or the other one that I was expecting to use. The capacity on this container is about 8 quarts. So I'm guessing that I'm probably at 6.5. And so this Corvette, as far as I know, has a 12 quart cooling capacity. So, like, where are the other 6 quarts? I'm afraid that when I start pulling hoses off and whatnot, that the coolant's going to go flying everywhere. We're going to see what happens. There's going to be a little bit left in the surge tank and then the fill tank. But that's nothing. Where's the rest of the coolant? Maybe it's not meant to all drain out. Maybe the petcock isn't the low point in the system. I don't know. It just seems like it should have drained out more, and we're gonna keep moving. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove the lower hose on the cooling, and let's see what happens. Here we go. Before I compromise any more of the coolant that I drained, I thought that I would go ahead and pour it into 1-gallon containers. These will work just fine on a temporary basis. You don't want a long-term storage for these containers with coolant because it'll degrade the plastic eventually. But there you go. It's a little bit more than 4 quarts. The capacity on a Corvette is 12 quarts. Where are the other 8 quarts? This is a little bit concerning, but we've just got to keep moving. So here we go. Okay, so I'm pulling the hose off of the radiator, and there's a whole bunch of coolant that's coming out. I hope I can show you like what it looks like. This is hard to do because the light and the camera just don't jive. Here we go. Hope you get a sense of this. See that? I don't know how much coolant's going to come out of here, but I'm afraid to pull the hose completely off and it's just going to spray everywhere. So anyway, I'm going to quit that for a second and I'll be back. Finished up taking the hose off of the bottom of the radiator. Now we're going to take it off the top, and you always kind of want to watch for your OptiSpark. Like, where's the OptiSpark? Oh, it's right underneath the water pump right there. Gosh, jeez. You can see kind of the center of the screen, the silver area, that's the water pump. And I think that this hose is far enough away that we're not going to have an issue. I'm expecting like a bunch of coolant to come out of this hose. We've got a couple pints out of the bottom hose. And so there you go. It filled up the 2nd gallon container about that much. And let's see here. Yeah, I think we're going to work on that next. I'm just trying to think if there's any way I can collect this fluid, and I don't think there is. I think it's just going to drain to that bottom pan there because I don't think I can get anything up underneath here. Okay, let's see what happens. Surprisingly, there wasn't a whole lot of coolant that came out of here. Maybe some of you who've changed a lot of radiators probably already knew that. I went ahead and there's just a little bit that leaked. Let's see if we can get the right camera. Just a little bit that leaked there. Down below, not too bad. And then I went ahead and just put a little bit of just a paper towel, a cloth shop in here just in case it decides to change its mind and leak a little bit more. So we've got that off. We're gonna work on the other lines now. I think they're transmission lines, but maybe not. I don't know. We'll see what color it is. We'll see what color comes out. Okay, stay tuned. So I removed this other bottom line that goes into the radiator. If the camera will focus. Let's see here. Very tough here. There we go. So I removed, this is a righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. The 12 millimeter wrench was too little. The 13 millimeter wrench was too big. I don't know what size you're supposed to use. So I had to use a 13, and it's a righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So it came off hard, but it came off. And it's a red liquid. So there you go. We're gonna let this drip a little bit. We're gonna let this drip just a little bit, but I don't think it's gonna drip too much. And so we're on to remove the top one now. So I went to get this top connection off right here, and it's not really coming off, and I don't want to break it off. So I'm gonna hit it with some WD-40 to see if, and then just let it soak for a little bit, and then see if that Yeah, the light that I've got and this camera, sorry guys, it just does not mesh up well. I don't know what to do. Anyway, I don't think I can do this. It's just too tight a spot. But just trust me, I'm going to hit it with some WD-40. And we'll just wait a little bit. And it looks like it's like a little, maybe just a little on the rusted side. I don't know. Certainly doesn't look new. And we'll be back. Okay, we're back again. And yeah, I hit this top line with some WD-40 and it just came right off. So that's what I recommend you do, because I'm thinking it's probably going to be a little stuck in there. And then don't forget that this is like an overflow. There goes a little bit of coolant all over the place. But here's this like overflow line, and I took this off, and it comes off right there. And so your radiator needs to actually have 5 connection points. Don't forget to get a radiator that has 5 connection points. It'll be 4 on this side and 1 on the other. Okay, this is all for now. I think the next step is going to be to try to remove this housing, or at least split it apart so that we can get the radiator out. So we'll be taking on that next step. Okay, I'm looking at what we need to do next, and I think this is going to be the part that's not only a lot of work, but it's going to be difficult work too. This housing is a separate piece. If you can follow me, this housing here, this plastic housing is a separate piece from this one here. You can see, for example, it's connected with bolts along here. And that's not the hard part. The hard part is that you've got these tiny little screws down here. Let's see if I can use 2 hands for this. Let's see here. So we've got these tiny little screws down here. They need to come off because this housing is being held on by these little screws on this bracket. And the way to do that is we're going to have to take this air pump off. So that air pump's going to have to come out. Don't forget that these electrical connections relative to that housing need to come off too, because when this thing pops off, I think it's going to pop off. They can't be attached. Yeah, I don't know about that top one there. That top one's going to have to come off, I think, from the top. But the bottom 2, I think, will come out going under right where this air pump is. Let's go to the other side. We've got the same situation on the other side too. Yeah, so you'll see these little screws down here, and except for the top one, which will need to come out from the top, that top one will need to come out from the top. The others will be able to come out without having to remove anything. Sorry. They'll come out by going through here, underneath here, and out. So I think you're going to need kind of like a ratchet set. Hopefully I've got something that small to get those out. So I don't think there's any electrical connections on this side that need to come out. And again, I think that, then these, like for example, this bolt, don't think that bolt needs to come out, but that bolt will come out because it's attached to this piece here. So it's going to be a lot of work to get this thing out. All these bolts are going to need to come out. We'll tackle it one at a time, and I'll let you know how it goes. I've decided that I want to take the air pump out first. And I think the way the air pump is going to come off is this bolt, that bolt, and then there's one on this side too, on the bottom. And I think if you pull those out, this thing is going to disconnect, and maybe we can lay it off to the side. And once we do that, then we should be able to get to those little screws, except for the top one. Just trying to decide if I want to try to get to that top one now, just to see what it's like. I might do something like that. Okay, anyway, we'll be back in a second. So I decided to tackle the air pump first, and these are the screws that come out of it. They're pretty long. You're going to be using a little wrench forever. So it's a 10 millimeter. Okay, so the air pump came out, and it wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but it wasn't that difficult. Don't forget this electrical connection. This electrical connection has got this tab on it, and you literally just push up on it and to snap it off. And the reason they call it an air pump is because you do have a couple of hoses connected to it, like for example this one. And I went ahead and left this plastic bracket. This plastic connector is like you squeeze it and it'll stay together, and they do a good job of staying together, but they're terrible at coming apart, and I guess that's the point. Just work a screwdriver into there, lift up this top piece, and then either push this bottom piece out through or try to lift it up and it'll come off. I'm just going to leave that on there because I don't think it's going to come off very easily. Then there was another hose. The other hose I just wound up leaving it on there. And but the problem is that they also had a plastic snap-on, and that plastic snap-on will not go through this area here. So the hose will fit through there, and then back out from here. But the hose and that plastic clamp will not. So that plastic clamp had to come off, and then I was able to just pull everything through. I've pulled everything through, and I wound up using this 7 millimeter socket. There it is right there on the end of a screwdriver. And the 7 millimeter is what will take those little screws out that I was talking about earlier. So that just fits right in there, and that comes out. It's actually no, it's on there pretty good. It'll come out pretty good, and it just pops out. I don't have anything smaller than a 7 millimeter in this kind of socket, so I don't know how I'm going to get that top one out. It might just need to come out with a pair of pliers. So anyway, more to come. Alrighty, I do not have a 7 millimeter wrench to get this top little screw off right there. I do not have anything. You have to have exactly a 7 millimeter something, and you can't go in through here because it's up too high. It's along this bracket right there. It's in the way of this bracket. So what I'm going to try is I'm going to try a plumber's wrench to get it off of there. And because I've already got some 7 millimeter screws out, I've actually gone ahead and got the correct spacing on it. And so I'm going to see if I can wiggle that on in there and get it out. And naturally, if I can get it out, probably not going to go back in, because unless this thing will hold it in place while I can screw it back in. So they've really, I mean, you got to hand it to GM. They've really put this little screw here in an inconvenient, highly inconvenient place, and going to be quite the challenge to get it out. So here we go. We'll see what happens. So this plumber's wrench it will not work. I think it would work, but the problem is as soon as you can get it on there, you don't have any place to move. I mean, this bracket is right in the way, so you can't get this thing to move in any direction. So yeah, I'm gonna try a needle nose pliers. Let's see if needle nose pliers works, and if I can get a hold of that screw well enough to be able to get it out with needle nose pliers. So stay tuned. So back again, and I was able to get that. There you can see if the light will cooperate. I was able to get that 7mm screw out of there, but it was a very difficult job, even with the right tool. I wound up having to go to Ace Hardware. I didn't have a 7mm wrench. There's the 7mm wrench. So Ace Hardware is not close to me. There is no other tool place that's close to me. So it was to go get the tool and come back was 50 minutes. So this has probably turned into a tomorrow job already. This is really taking a long time. This is a time-consuming job. I don't think it's difficult. It's just time-consuming. So we've got all the little screws off on this side. What we're going to do is we're going to go around to the other side and take off the little screws on the other side. Okay, guys, back again, and now we're on the other side, and we're trying to remove these screws in here. And I already got one of them off, and you can just take that screwdriver and socket, and you can see that they're going to come off. The top one is going to be like the other one. You can't get to it. So I'm going to have to use that 7mm wrench that I just bought for it. Okay, 10-4 over. I started to take the other bolts off of this housing here so I can either get it out or move it over. So you can see right here, there's one that came out. That's 13mm, and there's a couple on this side too that are 13mm. This one right here, great, and this one right here. Turn this. Let's try it this way. Let's see if we can find it. It's right there. That's 13mm too. These I think are smaller. Well, I'm not quite sure. These right here are going to be smaller. I'm not quite sure what they are. And then this one's going to be smaller. Yeah. So we've got some of those to take off, and so let's go back to the other side and take a look at what's involved with getting these other 13mm. You can see this one right here. See if I can, that's it right there, kind of like right in the middle of the camera. And that's not going to come out very easily, and neither is that one. The only way they're going to come out is by getting whatever these are out. That's going to have to come out. So I'm going to unscrew that next, get that off, and then I can take those bolts out. Okay, here we go. All right, this came off with a 10mm socket. That's going to hang down now. That's going to allow me to move that, and also it's going to allow me to get to these here and that one there. So that was 10mm, by the way. Those were 10mm. All right. So yeah, so that was another 13mm came right out, and then when you go over to this one, it's going to be 10mm, and it's a guide so that when you go to put this thing back on, I suppose when it comes, hopefully it comes off. It's a guide so that you can put that back on, and then this is what the you've seen this kind of a kind of like a screw. It's a guide screw, so that goes right on there. There'll be one on the other side too. Those are 10 millimeters. All right, so I've removed all of the bolts that were along here. They're all 10 millimeter, so just so you know. Everything is off. You can see that this thing is starting to crack open and that the radiator is inside of here. But there are, I think, at least 4 bolts underneath this unit down below that need to come off. And so we're going to take those off next and see if this thing doesn't... maybe this thing comes off just like it does right now. So I'm going to try to just get this thing off without undoing those bolts underneath, and let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm fairly encouraged by the fact that I think that this unit will probably come this way. It's not going to entirely come off, I don't think, because there's a connection right here. If you can see this wire, if you can look down in there, see that wire? It's attached to this housing. And so I don't know if that can come off, but I have a feeling that that's going to be really hard to do. And also I'm seeing more wires. I'm seeing another set of wires over here, and I don't know what that's attached to. That's interesting, but I think that this thing maybe lifts and comes this way, but getting it around here is going to be tough, and I don't want to undo that because I think that's air conditioning. Yeah, that's air conditioning, and once you undo that, it's all over. You don't have air conditioning anymore. You're going to lose all of your gas. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to like move this thing and tilt it and bring it this way so I can get this radiator out of here. Stay tuned. Okay, I'm in the process of trying to get this top cover off. Where I left off before was I thought maybe that I had to unscrew some bolts underneath, but I don't think so. You can see here that this cover's coming off, and the trick to getting it off is pulling it from the driver's side first. Make sure that you stay like here. So if you try to pull it off, that way, it's not going to go because it catches on this hinge. It catches on this hinge right here. So keep it close to the original, where it was originally bolted, and just try to wiggle it out and it should pop out. I wish I could have filmed it when I was doing it because it took a lot of thinking to get this far. It's not intuitive, it's not easy because it doesn't look like it wants to come out, and the hard part here is you've got these lines that are air conditioning that you got to get past. But this housing is not coming off until you disconnect this wire here. So I'm going to try to disconnect that wire. It should pop right off, and then I should be able to just fold this thing up and bring it out. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm going to try to leave the phone there. And I disconnected this wire down below. I'm going to put some gloves on, and I'm hoping that this plastic shroud just folds right over. It just comes out like this. I'm thinking it should. Okay. Bingo. It's out. Thank the Lord. Okay, now we can get to the radiator itself, I'm pretty sure. So I'll put this off to the side and kind of show you now what that looks like when you could get that off. You don't need to undo those bolts on the bottom unless there's some kind of a bracket that won't allow this radiator to come out. I'm going to tackle this tomorrow at this point. It is 8:30 at night. I've been at this since, just so you guys know, I've been at this since 9:30 this morning. About 9 or 9:30 this morning. Of course, a lot of that time was taken up jacking up the car and lifting it. I think I got started with this whole thing right around, I'm going to say probably right around 10:30 to 11. So that gives you an idea of how long this takes. I took an hour for lunch. And then I basically took an hour because I had to go to Ace Hardware and get a wrench because I needed that 7mm wrench. So that kind of gives you an idea of how long this is going to take. And this is now going to sit here until tomorrow morning. And I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to get this radiator out tomorrow now. Just for the heck of it, let's look down here. And if you can, let's see if I can shine a light down here. And I don't know if you can pick that up or not, but there's coolant down here, and there shouldn't be coolant down here. There, can you see that? Yeah, I'm thinking this is the radiator. Radiator's been leaking for a while and just hasn't made it out of the car yet, but it started making it out of the car. So, anyway, I'll be right back. I'm going to see if this radiator is going to lift out. Hold on a second. Okay, so just to show you, yeah, this radiator is going to just pop right out. You can just kind of lift it. See that? So I'll tackle that tomorrow. There's some guides down here. You can see these. If it'll focus. There's some guides that are the width of this. So I'd like to measure that tonight. Compare it to the new radiator. Sorry, it's going to be the width of this is the guide down below. And I'd like to measure the new radiator to make sure that that's going to fit in there. I'm hoping it does because I don't have new guides for this. So anyway, we'll kick this back up tomorrow. Over and out. Good morning. We're back on the project. This is day 2. And what I'm doing is I'm just cleaning out the debris that's down in the radiator well. And it's going to be a job because it's hard to get to. And what I did was I actually pulled out the mount. Here you can see it. I'm going to clean that out. That's it deserves to be cleaned. It just popped right out. There's a little flange on the bottom, I think. If you can catch that, if you can see it, it's right there. And I think that'll pop right back in, and we're going to wash this out. You can see, this thing is good at collecting little pebbles and little rocks. And that's what's mostly down here as well. Little pebbles and rocks. So hopefully can get all that stuff cleaned out. I would really like to, so that this gives us a fresh start. And we're going to clean up the condenser here, if that's what that is. Yeah, the more cool the cleaner you can keep it, the cooler it's going to work. So, okay, back in a jiff. All right, so I'm now working towards mounting the new radiator in here, and I've dropped the new one in here, and it looks like it's gonna fit. It's not quite the same dimensions as the old one. The old one is, I don't know if it's a 1 or 2 row, but here's the new one, and it's a 4 row. So you can just see the difference in the thickness. It's quite a bit thicker than this one here. You can see the difference. And what the radiator sits on is some rubber mounting brackets that look like this. And you can see, for example, now that's kind of dirty there, but you can see how it kind of fits on there, just like that. So that width right there fits perfectly on there. And so this distance here is the same as this groove in here on this rubber. And this winds up down here at the bottom. And it fits right in that slot that you can see. It fits right in that slot. And you can see by looking at it, it kind of looks like the same thing. So as we come over to the new one, guess what? This doesn't fit. Because this one is much wider. The new Radiator, you can see that this does not fit on here. So what you have to do is you have to cut them to size, and so I've already cut this one to size. It's not a lot of fun to do, and you just needed to use probably try to use a couple different types of serrated knives to do that. But you can see here it's going to wind up on the bottom, but let's see if I can. This is going to, because this is the front. And I'll take a break here. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So here's and I'm just gonna leave it on the ground here. And then if you take this, I have to put the phone down. Let's see if I can do it like this. I think you should be able to see that, because I need two hands to pick up this radiator. And it's gonna fit right in here like that. So you can see that fits like right on there now. It fits along the front perfectly. And it matches the back. All right, so that's the kind of thing you want to do if you want to upgrade to a wider radiator. Otherwise, just get the same radiator. But I didn't like wanting to, the idea of going back to the same radiator, because I'm going to have the same trouble. The old radiator apparently does not have a crack in this plastic, but I did find that when it was full of fluid and I was holding the radiator up, that it was leaking between the metal and the plastic, and that's where the leak had developed. Well, that's just going to happen again if you get this kind of radiator. So, and however many rows this is, one or two, I don't know. I'm switching to a 4-row, so there's no question that this is going to, for sure, keep the whole system a little cooler. Okay, all for now. All right, so I've cut these mounting guides to size, and I've got them installed. You can see them down here, down at the bottom, and they're cut to size for the new radiator. And when you pull them out, they've got like a little grommet on the bottom that needs to line up with the hole. And so I'll show you what I did to get them back in. There you can see it. Let's see if I can focus in on it, okay? Let's see. It's right there. And what I did with this awl was you only get about that much sticking through the hole. So what you do with this awl is you pull it, and you pull it so that it gets through, because otherwise it won't sit flush. There it is right there, that guide. And it won't sit flush if this doesn't come all the way through. And there's one on this side too. So there's the other one. See if this thing will focus. But anyway, there's the other one right there. And this camera's not focusing. So there you go. And they're both in, and we're ready to put the radiator in. All right, we're back again, and you'll notice the radiator's not in here. And it's because when I put the radiator in here, on this side, the passenger side, I was noticing that it very much feels like it's jarring. There's no cushion at all, and I'm like, why is it not resting on the cushion, this rubber cushion down here? Well, the reason why is because if I can point to it, you see these ridges? Let's see if I can. Okay, you see these ridges right here? On this side, they're too high. And I don't have that issue on the other side. So when it comes to like cutting this thing to size, don't bother on this size. On this side, you want the rubber to come up and match. And actually, it won't even match because on this side, it's like, well, I guess it does come up to that side. Okay, but I don't have that issue on the other side. So the other side, it feels pretty flush and it feels pretty solid. On this side, it doesn't, which is concerning because every time you take a bump or the vehicle jars, it's going to bounce the radiator. So let's go to the other side, and I'll show you. And I don't seem to have this issue on the other side. And so if you can see here, well, I don't know. See, the rubber here is just like is so much higher than the rest of that plastic piece. Even down over here, even down over in this area, the rubber is just so much higher than that plastic. I don't know if someone's been down here before. I think someone's been down here before and has removed some of that plastic. I don't know. But anyway, that's kind of a bummer because I don't know how, I was kind of hoping to gain that 1/2 inch because this radiator is 1/2 inch shorter than the other radiator, and it needs to be, because it's thicker and it needs to sit in here, and now it's not sitting in here. It's still going to be, pushed up. So I don't know if that plastic housing, that fiberglass housing that goes over, it's going to fit. We're going to find out. Okay, bye. Alrighty, I have decided that I'm going to put the housing back on. The radiator's in, and I'm going to try to put this this fiberglass cover back on and first, and to make sure that it fits on because it is a new radiator. It's quite a bit wider, and it's a 1/2 inch shorter, and I'm not sure that's short enough. But we're going to find out. On this housing, so there are remember there's 4 little screws on the right-hand side. One of them, I would say when you pull it off, go ahead and take all of them off. Just realize, this is all fiberglass, hold on a second. Just realize that what you're disconnecting is this housing for, let's see if I can get it. What you're disconnecting is this. Okay, hold on a second. Let me get this light. What you're disconnecting is this housing right here, right? For this sensor. It's like a air sensor of some sort, and you can see the air sensor from the inside. It's protected from this side and this side, but on the other side, I've actually gone ahead and put it back on, and we'll see if it goes back on okay. I don't know if it's going to be in the way, but it certainly releases. When you undo that screw, what happens is it releases and it hangs by the wire, and that's okay. It's okay that it hangs by that wire. Nothing happens to it, but now I'm wondering if it's not going to be in the way when I go to put it back in because it's not just hanging there. But I do think that it's going to be hard to put back on once this cover goes on. I don't know because you've got to hold it in place. And then from this side, you got to hold it in place from the bottom. And then on this side, you've got to put the screw in. I don't know how that would work. Maybe it will. Anyway, let's see what happens. Cover's gonna go on. Alrighty. Looks like I've got the housing back on, but yeah, here's a word of advice: do not get a 4-row radiator because you can see that I'm gonna have a gap here. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to close that gap. I don't think I'm going to be able to close it very much. On the other side, I don't have that. That's actually going to close up pretty good. I don't know how important it is that that gap be closed. We're going to find out. But if you want this thing flush here, if you want this guide screw to be flush, it looks like there's a gap. And the reason why is because right in here on this side, this radiator is just too wide. So it's hitting up against this housing and not allowing, I don't think it's allowing this thing to close. Now on this side, I don't seem to have that problem. I can't finagle it now, but anyway. Yeah, that's my word of advice is don't get a 4-row radiator. It just doesn't quite fit in here. Even though you're going to see that the description of the radiators it's going to fit in here. Yeah, I don't know. Does it really fit in here? I guess it doesn't matter if there's a little gap there. Just don't know. Something else I wanted to tell you. And I can't remember what it is. Anyway, out for now. Okay, I remember what it is I wanted to tell you. And I have actually got this thing on wrong, but it's the only way it goes in. So when you go to put this side in, make sure that this housing is on the inside of this bracket. So you can see the bracket and you can see the housing. I'm gonna have to go back and look at how this goes in because I think that the housing is supposed to be on the outside of the bracket. So I'm gonna go back and look at my videos, but just so you know, that's really the only way it's gonna go in, and then you can adjust it. But everything seems to be okay. I mean, here it's in the guide screw. I've got the hose on, and see how there's no gap right there? It's gonna fit just fine, and then of course it widens out as you go. So anyway, just keep that in mind when you're trying to get it in, and particularly when you're trying to get it back in. Yeah. Okay. Bye. Okay, the radiator is in, and it actually worked out a little better than I thought it would in some areas and not so good in others. But you can see how this alignment here actually wound up closing pretty well. But, and I didn't want to push it. I didn't close it all the way because I don't want to crack the fiberglass. But there are some other issues. Right down here, you can see how that screw, that 13 millimeters bolt went in, but it's not aligned like it was before. This whole box has shifted this way about 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch. And so do you remember those little screws that were down here? Well, this box is off by, let's say, 3/8 of an inch. So those screws aren't going to go back in. And it's also an issue on the other side. Let's take a look. So yeah, whatever you do, don't get a 4-row radiator for this car. It's not going to fit in this housing. It's not designed for it. I think you can get away with the 3-row. Here you go down here. the issue here is that the metal plate is on the inside of this box, not on the outside. But it wouldn't matter. If it was on the outside, it wouldn't line, the screws wouldn't line up to go through that plate anyway. So what does that mean? What that means is, I'm going to show you what this means aerodynamically. So let's say that this car is meant for 150 miles an hour. As air is forced up in here, that's quite a bit of compression. And let's see how much this moves. Actually, it doesn't move at all. That's great. Here you can see how this is out of alignment, and that whole box wound up moving, this way towards the passenger side by about, on this side it looks like more than 3/8 of an inch. Everything else seems like it works okay. Let's see how much this side moves. This side's pretty snug. I mean, this is loose here, and that's not good. I don't know what 150 mile an hour. I don't plan on driving this thing 150 miles an hour. I think it'll do 165. I would think you'd be scared out of your mind driving that fast. So I think it's going to be okay. I don't know what happens at 150 miles an hour. I don't even know what happens at 100 miles an hour. 100 miles an hour is not that big a deal. This thing's pretty solid in here, so I don't think we got an issue. But anyway, just to let you know what happened, yeah, the 4-row radiator is going to work great, I believe, but it's not really fitting in here. It's not really meant for this car. Okay, over. Okay, we're continuing on with the installation of the radiator in the C4 Corvette. This is day 3. It shouldn't take 3 days to do this. I would have wrapped this up on day 2, except that when I was connecting up hoses and transmission lines to the radiator, if you can see down here, when I went to go ahead and thread this in, it's not the same size. What you've got coming out of here, out of the radiator, is a 5/8 inch threaded, female threaded connection. And what you have coming out of the Corvette is a 1/2 inch. So if I said this was a 1/2 inch, that's incorrect. This is a 5/8 inch, and this is a 1/2 inch. So it's not going to connect up. So last night I was doing some work to try to figure out what kind of an adapter I could get, what kind of a fitting I could find. And I don't know what the pitch thread is on this, and I don't know what the pitch thread is on the radiator. So I did a little bit of work, and I figured out that the Corvette is a 1/2 inch, and it's a 1/2 inch -20 pitch thread. So at least I knew that much. And I knew that this was a 5/8 inch, and I didn't know what it was. And everything that I looked up online was that most radiators are 1/4 inch NTP threaded. I don't really understand if that's valid or not. So I called AutoZone. They didn't have anything for me. Kept looking on the internet and didn't really come up with much. So I decided to call O'Reilly's, and O'Reilly's said, "Yeah, we carry a female 1/2 inch -20 inverted, and then we carry the male 5 inch -18." And here it is. And it works. Thank the Lord, it works. See if I can put this light off to the side. So that brass fitting will fit. And here's the part number if you want to get this. And there's there are the specifics, the data on what you'll need. Just in case you want to do the same thing, you may need. I'm thinking if you do an aftermarket radiator, this is what it's going to look like. And so you're going to have to probably find a fitting that will work. Now, what I'm going to do on this is I'm going to go ahead and thread this with some Teflon tape. It's probably, I don't, because this thing is up on jacks, I don't want this thing to leak and then I have to jack it back up again to fix a leak. I'm just going to go ahead and not take a chance as much, lower my risk as much as possible and go ahead and put some Teflon tape on both the Corvette side and the this brass fitting side. Okay, welcome back. Everything is together now. Like for example, this hose. Got this hose on here. This went in. Also, the automatic transmission line at the top went in. You can see the radiator here. It's kind of sticking out. Everything's put back together. So the next step is I'm going to put the coolant back in through here, and it's going to take more coolant than actually came out. And the reason why is because it's a bigger radiator, so it's going to need more coolant. One more thing to check while we're at it, and just to let you know, so these rubber guides, see this rubber guide? It was here on the inside, on the top. It's meant to fit the radiator, and then this portion is for the condenser. It keeps it in place. There's no way that this bigger radiator was going to fit in here with this attachment too. It would never have closed up like this. It's in here really tight. It's not moving. My concern is the condenser, which is attached to this, to the air conditioning lines here. So we're going to go underneath to see if it lifts up, because there's a gap here on the condenser between it and the housing. And my fear is that I take a pretty good jolt on the car and that condenser is going to pop up. Well, let's take a look and see if that condenser is going to move. I'm kind of halfway guessing that it's going to. So here it is. And it does. It moves. It doesn't move on this side because that's where the lines are. It doesn't move on the passenger side because that's where the lines are connected to it. So it's keeping it pretty good place. However, on this side, the driver's side, there's nothing that's keeping it in place because the guide popped out. So there you go. See how much it moves? I don't know how big a deal that is. I might think about seeing if I can anchor it down here at the bottom just a little bit, or putting something in here that will keep it from moving so much. Yeah, so those guides at the top, they came out on both sides, so there's nothing in here anymore really keeping it down, and it's only the lines on this side. It's only the lines on the passenger side that are keeping it from jarring up and down. But even if this moves, it takes a bounce, it's just going to fall right back into place because it's in the guide on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if I can show you. There we go. Okay, so here we go. We take a bounce. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. We take a bounce. Bang, it pops up. But that's as far as it goes. It goes up about half an inch, and then it settles back down. And it stays in its guide on the bottom. So that may not be too big a deal. I don't know. Maybe it goes up like 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so something to think about. These are all things to think about when you're putting in an aftermarket radiator. It's never going to fit quite like what was originally designed. Just so you know, it's not going to be perfect, but you are getting a better radiator. Okay, out for now. All right. So what I wanted to do now was to show you where I got the this radiator for the Corvette. Um, here I typed in a 4-row radiator for 1994 Chevy Corvette, and this is the one I got. This is if you want to follow along and do the same thing that I did. This is the 4-row radiator. It says compatible for 1989 through 96 Chevy. It's really not, but it'll work. It'll fit just like you saw me make it fit. Um, Here it is. It's $269, and I got it from the Cuba Auto Store. Um, the other thing too is you'll note here that it looks like there's some plastic inserts for the cooling lines, and there are not. When it arrives, it's not going to arrive with any plastic inserts. Just so you know. Um, you know, I've at this point I've tested the radiator. It works great. I've driven it a couple of times and keeps everything really cool. So it works really well. I would say the bad side about this ordering from these guys is if you have any questions, you're not going to be able to contact them. Down here somewhere it says, hey, if you've got any questions, just contact us. There's no way to contact them through Amazon, or if you search for them on the internet, they don't exist. So just so you know, when you order this product, you're on your own. But the welds on it are really good. It seems to be really beefy and well made. So I don't think you'll have any trouble with it. Okay. Okay, so welcome back. What I wanted to discuss now is the type of fluids that you need to put back into your vehicle. And I'll start off with the automatic transmission fluid. This is Dextron 6. I picked this up at AutoZone. It was about $12.50 with tax. I tried looking for this at Walmart, and Walmart does not carry this. On your dipstick and probably in your manual, it's going to say to use Dextron 2. They don't make Dextron 2 anymore, and if you look for compatibility, it says you're going to find that the references are, if you're looking for Dextron 2, use Dextron 6 now. So that's what that looks like. So how much automatic transmission fluid do you need to put back into your vehicle? So I'm going to discuss that. This is what came out when I unhooked the automatic transmission cooling lines from the radiator. It's about a couple of ounces. You can see that. And so I lost transmission fluid 3 ways. Just so you know, this is the first way. The second way is when you turn your actual old radiator upside down and drain the fluids out of it, you're going to get a couple more ounces of transmission fluid coming out of it. So it's going to be equivalent to about what you see here is going to come out of the radiator itself as well. And then I lost probably 4 ounces when I went and started this Corvette up, and transmission fluid was coming out of the radiator at the top connection, and maybe I can show that to you. By the time I backed this car up with the Corvette up and then parked it back in, you can see here, I don't know if you can see over here, but here's some of the leftover residue of, that's just some of it, but I mean, it puddled it in a couple different places. It was quite a bit, about 4 ounces. And so I wound up, after starting it up and making sure that the transmission lines, automatic transmission lines were hooked up and it wasn't going to leak anymore, I wound up adding about 8 ounces of this back in, and you can see the top where it says 32 ounces. That's about where it was, and this is where I'm at now, and it's perfectly topped off. Just gives you an idea of what kind of transmission fluid you want to put back in it. By the way, I wound up having to undo that top transmission line, and the question was now, how was I going to make that seal? And so what I did was I picked this up from O'Reilly's. It's Permatex Seal Lock Thread Compound. It's pretty good stuff. It worked the first time. You can see here it seals to 1,000 psi. pretty good locking force, and then you can remove it, in the future if you want to. Follow the instructions carefully. The instructions are pretty detailed. Here are the directions, and I followed the directions perfectly, and it worked for me. It wound up holding and sealing, and I didn't lose any more transmission fluid. So the next fluid you're going to need is you're going to need coolant, and so this is what I use for the Corvette, and I probably wound up using about half a gallon. Between what I lost in the transition process from one radiator to the other, and then when I hooked up the new radiator, it never did leak. That held pretty good. So and I wound up using about, I'm gonna guess, maybe half a gallon, maybe not quite half a gallon of this, because I had another bottle and I used up the rest of that, and then I've used up about a third of a gallon in this. So it might be around half a gallon, somewhere in there, that you might have to replace. And of course, you want to go through the purging process. And I didn't show the purging process here. There's lots of good videos on purging the air out of your system. What I can tell you is that it's quite an ordeal, I thought. I wound up letting this car run for about 37 minutes, and finally I just got tired of watching the bubbles come up, and I just quit. And then I looked online to see, like, what's the worst thing that can happen to your car if you don't purge all the air out of the system. And so, what it said was that you may get an uneven distribution of coolant throughout the system, which could lead to an overheating issue, which could damage your engine. Yeah, so that it could damage your engine. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, that's not going to happen, because it never even ran hot with the old radiator that was a 2-row. With this 4-row, I'm noticing that it doesn't run anything past about maybe a smidge over 185 when I'm driving it. So I think eventually all the air bubbles will eventually come out of the system. It's going to take a while. I'm not anxious to open up the bleeder valve on this, because it sits right over it. The bleeder valve is basically at the water pump, and it sits right over the OptiSpark. So I'm not really anxious to bleed a whole bunch of coolant all over the OptiSpark. So, okay, so all for now. Hope that helped.